as we gather here today, the genocide and the horrors in Gaza continue, and the situation gets worse by the day. It began with displacement. More than 80% of people in Gaza now have been displaced from their homes. Then there was bombing, which continues. More than 40,000 people being directly killed by the bombings and many more being injured. Then there was deprivation of health care, as these injured people had nowhere to go because most of the hospitals have been destroyed, and the Israeli army continued to target health centers, ambulances, health workers, and sometimes even civilians who were trying to come to the rescue of injured children. Then came starvation, as humanitarian aid was being largely blocked. More than 90% of people in Gaza today suffer from severe food deprivation. And now there is illness and diseases and possible epidemics, with the Ministry of Health in Gaza declaring a few days ago a polio epidemic, and the WHO confirming that the polio virus has been found in sewage in Gaza. All this has happened in a planned manner, as announced, despite waves of protest around the world and with the complicity of many countries, or rather many governments, starting, of course, with the United States government, but also including many other governments, including India. And it is that complicity that is one of the main issues today. As Vijayan explained, I will begin by reading a brief statement on behalf of the Right to Food campaign. The statement is available and will be distributed at the end of the press conference. It's okay. The statement is called "End Hunger in Gaza, Stop the War." The Right to Food campaign is appalled by the merciless use of starvation as a weapon of war in Gaza by the Israeli government. We are equally dismayed by the Indian government's continued complicity with this and related war crimes in Gaza. During the last 9 months, tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians, including countless children, have been blown to pieces, buried under the rubble, chopped to death, or grievously wounded. Most of the injured have been deprived of medical care as the Israeli army relentlessly targeted hospitals, health centers, ambulances, and health workers, more than 500 of whom have been killed so far. For good measure, the survivors are now being starved. United Nations agencies estimate that more than 90% of the population of Gaza is suffering from acute food deprivation. Rampant undernutrition and abominable sanitary conditions have led to the rapid spread of disease. The health ministry in Gaza has recently declared a polio epidemic, no less. This attack on the right to food and health care is reason enough on its own to call for an immediate ceasefire and to end all cooperation with the State of Israel for the time being. Unfortunately, the government of India has done nothing to contribute to an end to these war crimes. On the contrary, it has remained a faithful ally of the Israeli government, subsidizing Indian companies that produce military material for Israel, sending Indian workers to Israel in replacement of Palestinian workers, and suppressing protests against Israel in India. Even at the United Nations, India has mostly abstained from efforts to bring about resolutions that would restrain Israel. According to the International Court of Justice, complicity with genocide occurs when, I quote, "some positive action has been taken to furnish aid or assistance to the perpetrators of the genocide." This is an accurate description of what the Indian government is doing at the moment. In spite of the Indian government's clampdown on protests against the Israeli government and manifestations of solidarity with the Palestinian people. There have been many protests in different parts of India in the last few months. Hopefully, there will be more in the near future. The use of starvation and disease as weapons of war is unacceptable, full stop. As an all-India coalition upholding everyone's right to food and nutrition in India, we stand in solidarity with the people of Gaza and Palestine. We call for an immediate end to the war and ceasefire now. We, the Right to Food campaign of India, uphold the right to food and freedom of the Palestinian people. This was a statement on behalf of the Right to Food campaign. I will not add very much because I'm sure that other speakers have a lot more to say. I'll just say that this complicity of the Indian government begins but does not end with the strategic partnership that binds the two countries. And I'm using the word strategic partnership because that is the term that is formally used by both countries to refer to their mutual relationship since 2017 when Prime Minister Modi visited Israel. Under this strategic partnership, defense ties between Israel and India have flourished in the last few years, and even, of course, before that, including defense exports from Israel to India. India accounts for almost half of all the defense exports of Israel to other countries, and that includes, of course, the technology of surveillance, of crowd control, and the technology of occupation, as Anthony Lowenstein calls it in his book, The Palestine Laboratory, How Israel Exports the Technology of Occupation Around the World. This strategic partnership also includes, of course, exports from India to Israel. I think other speakers will speak about that. And it includes, very importantly, many subsidized joint ventures subsidized by the government of India, notably under the Make in India program, joint ventures between Israeli and Indian defense companies, with, for instance, on the Israeli side, Abets Systems, the biggest Israeli defense company, Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, and others. And on the Indian side, the Adani Group, surprise, Reliance, the Kalyani Group, and others. All this, of course, is supposed to be secret or confidential. There is not much information about it. But as it happens, there is a pretty good report that was published 2 years ago by the IDSA, the Institute of Defense and Studies Analysis, on this whole partnership between Israel and India. So if you want details, you can refer to that report. It's available on the net. So what I'm trying to say is that the cases that have come to our attention of Indian exports of defense material to Israel since October 7, and there are at least 5 documented such cases, that is only the tip of the iceberg, because most of this strategic partnership is below the radar. The government of India has refused several times in Parliament to give any details, including in 2014, when a similar attempt was made by members of Parliament, some members of Parliament, to demand the discontinuation of arms exports from India to Israel at the time of another attack on Gaza. And so there is much more going on than what you will be able to report today. Finally, we are under no illusion that the appeal that was made yesterday to the Indian government to discontinue arms exports to Israel will have much impact. But personally, I hope that at least it will help to draw the attention of the public to the complicity of the Indian government with the genocide in Gaza, and that it will encourage people to come out on the street and protest. Thank you.